Welcome to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. It is the week of May 22nd, 2023. Congratulations on making another week. We're here, and we're there, we're everywhere, all at once. Have you seen that movie? Pretty dope. It's kind of funny, because I said that, but we started watching it, and we were like an hour into it, and we were like, this is the best movie I've seen in years. And then we fell asleep, and then we never finished it, which is ridiculous. But anyways, we're here another week. Congratulations. That's pretty great. Still feeling pretty good about life. That's a nice way to start it off. Still feeling pretty good. Starting to hedge my bets a little. No, I do feel good about life. Why not? There's so many things to feel good about. This week was the same as the last week, which was the same as the last week, which is not a bad thing. As someone who has always pursued or has been, okay, let me start over. I'm rusty. It's been a week. As someone who's been in pursuit of something that is against the grain, if you will, not necessarily the norm. It's, not a typical 9-to-5 desk job, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that, which I'm seeing more and more increasingly over time. But for a while, that was evil to me. Not evil like people who did it were wrong or bad, or that the concept of it was evil. I guess I had to vilify it in my head as a motivating factor to why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I never want to do that. I never want to be the guy that's miserable at his job, waking up early every day to go do something he hates and getting home late, all that stuff. The typical B-roll shot you see of an angry guy driving in his car, and then it snaps to him at his desk in his office, hearing the same shit from his boss who doesn't respect him, back to, the drive home, stuck in traffic, another hour of his life gone, then home to his wife who he has problems with, and his kids are yelling, that kind of image. I always had to build that up as this monster in my head, to continue to motivate me to I don't want that. I want something different. I want this crazy life, I don't know. But as I get older and as I change, it's not that I want that. I still don't desire that. Obviously that's the worst version of it possible. But it just reminded me when I said this week was the same as the last week, which is the same as the week before that. That's not always a bad thing, because if you find something that's working for you and you're happy and things are going well and moving in the right direction, then you should stick to that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That old thing that all of our fathers and uncles and grandparents have told us over the years. So I guess I'm just realizing that more and more, routine is not bad if it's good. A good routine can't be bad. How about that? Is that a better way to say it? Routine is not bad if it's a good routine. So, that image you have in your head of I don't know, because we're in the age where it's the easiest it's ever been to be an entrepreneur and to be someone who create your own business and make money on your own and not have to rely on the more traditional routes of a career and stuff. We have constantly put that idea in our head of that's what it's like to have this same routine over and over and over again. But even what I'm realizing, maybe I'm dumb for not having realized it the whole time, and it's just becoming more and more evident to me now, is that even if you choose that path in your life, where maybe it's not as traditional, and it is more of you feel like a cowboy, venturing out into uncharted territory and doing your own thing and figuring it out as you go, you still, a routine builds up no matter what. Everything becomes work no matter what. And that's not always a negative thing, as I knock this table over. I don't know. There are certain things that I look forward to now that are part of my routine, where again, as an artist, I was always I don't know, you hear the stories of certain people you admire that are I don't know, doing drugs and fucking, causing havoc and being rock stars, and when you're young and you're pursuing something like this, that's kind of what you look up to. not to force it, not to like, I don't know, not trying to like act cool, but it's like that's the appeal to this lifestyle. But it's also, taking that out of it, it still requires a ton of discipline and a ton of like work ethic. I just saw Rick Rubin say something. Well, it's from his Rogan episode, but it's funny. That's the first time I said that, as if it's like a bad thing, because he seems to be such a debatable, polemical figure. Polemical is a good word, by the way. I know I'm all over the place right now, but I had that word in AP English as my SAT word one time, and I've used it ever since. Polemical is like, let's get to the correct definition, will you? Let's pull it up, okay? Because I have the computer. Why wouldn't I? Polemical. Expressing or constituting a strongly critical attack on or controversial opinion about someone or something. So, you get what I'm saying? I don't know if I used it correctly. It doesn't matter. My point is, I never mention his name because I don't want to like rub anyone the wrong way, but like I take in what his, I don't know. I watch that shit all the time because he has interesting people on, regardless of if I agree with them or not. I think we should all take that tact on life. Anyways, that's besides the point. Rick Rubin was on there, legendary producer. I've talked about him many times on this podcast. I just enjoy his outlook on life, especially because he is in the world that I love so much, that being the music industry. He was talking about talent versus work ethic, and how a lot of successful people, their work ethic outshines their talent, or is more important to them than people who get by on talent alone. And that's something that I've definitely learned over the years. And something that, like, I don't want to say I regret, but if I'm being honest with myself, when I look back at certain things, that's something that as a young, as a teenager or even younger, I relied on my talent too much and didn't put the work in. And I think to a detriment in a lot of ways, because I think there are certain areas where I would inevitably be stronger in or further in if I had put the time and work that it really deserved. Like once I started this, I again don't want to sound conceited at all, just being honest with myself and then therefore being honest with you. Once I started playing saxophone and like I got it really early on, it was extremely easy to me. Like it just came naturally. We all have those things that come naturally. And if you're lucky enough to find it and love it, then it sets you up to pursue this thing in your life, or this, maybe not even as a career, but something that will never leave you because it came so easy to you and it just seems like it's a part of you, an extension of yourself. And to me, that was music, but specifically the saxophone being the first instrument I ever learned. It came so naturally and it was so easy, and I felt like at the time that I was so much better than like my peers, because we were all young, we were all learning still, that I didn't practice nearly as much as I should have. And eventually that caught up to me when I got into the later stages of high school, where maybe early on I was the best, or it came the most naturally to me, I should say. I don't want to say I'm the best in anything, but at the time that's how I felt. But once I got later in high school, it was made evident, like, oh, people are starting to clearly catch up, and that's when I stopped making all county and stuff like that. And that's it. It's clear in my mind that it was right around the time that I really stopped caring, that those feelings became more evident. I was smoking dope, I was smoking weed a ton, and still enjoying music and loving it, and still like for example, there was a time and period where I was taking it less seriously, but at the same time, I was still like doing it as much as possible, if that makes sense. Like I was still trying out for all county every year. I was still in every music group in school that I could be in. I was still like playing in the pit crew for the pit crew, not like race cars, playing in the pit for like the school musicals and show choir and all this shit that I didn't have to do. I did it because I loved music that much, and because certain teachers I admired and loved and respected always asked me like, hey, we need you. Can you do this? Absolutely. And at that point, like, it wasn't, I don't know. I don't know if it wasn't the priority in my life, but like I also played sports, and if you played sports and did any sort of other extracurricular in high school specifically, maybe you can identify with this. There are times where like one would have to come at the expense of the other. Like I missed games in high school because I had a concert. And so clearly, I don't know really where I'm going with this. I guess what I'm saying is, even though I wasn't putting in that extra time to like really hone and practice and like polish my skills, it still was like my number one passion. And I don't even think I realized it at that point. And that's when, like, right around the same time that like I was early in high school, I was like, talking like freshman year, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Eastman, which, if you don't know, if you're not from upstate New York, Eastman School of Music is one of the best music colleges in the country. I was gonna go to Eastman, and I wanted to be a music teacher. And then like a couple more joints got smoked, and I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not like. It's so funny now looking at my life and the path that I followed. I was like, that's not realistic. What? So my thought on what would be more realistic was, all right, I'm a stoner, and now the brain is interesting me quite a bit. Let me go to school to be a psychologist. Didn't even know, this is how dumb this is. I didn't even know the difference between being a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist. Didn't know the difference. Didn't know you had to go to med school to be a psychologist. Didn't know any of this. But still, that's what I thought, like, oh, that's what'll make me money in the future. Being a music teacher would be dumb. And so that's when I went to RIT. I majored in psychology. That's the only reason I got into RIT, because if I went for engineering or anything technical, I never would have gotten in. But anyways, I went for psychology for a year, and then I was like, oh, I have to go to med school. Didn't realize that, which is, again, so naive and silly. Transferred to St. John Fisher. My mom's a nurse. My sister's a nurse. They have a good nursing program. I'm like, all right, I'll be a nurse. Guys, there's a zero bit of me that ever would want to fucking do that. I saw the horrors of it every day growing up. I saw how it drove my mom to drink, how she worked like a dog and like never got out of it what she put in my opinion. And I don't know, it just, sorry, this is bothering me. It just never clicked in my head it finally clicked in my head that this is not something I want to do at all. This is a ton of work for something I don't want to do. And that's when I really was smoking a ton of weed. And that's when me and Scary started making music together. And that's when I dropped out of school. I'm saying all of this because I feel like in those early years of high school and stuff, if I had pursued it and really honed my skill and like actually practiced like the other really skilled musicians that we went to school with, and who did literally do the exact same thing I'm talking about. They went to really good music colleges to become music teachers, and right now they're music teachers and like have a career. Then that would be, and maybe could have been, the path I followed, but I still just relied on my talent. And I'm going to wrap this all back around. After dropping out of school and like really pursuing like music the way we did for so many years, which ultimately led us to move out here and all that shit, tour, all that stuff. I don't know. Like, we obviously put time in. I've obviously put so much time in to like get better, but still in a lot of ways felt like it was just natural skill that I was relying on. And it hasn't been to the last couple of years that I've realized like, oh, that rock star lifestyle and mentality that like maybe we were pursuing as young artists who didn't really know what the fuck they were doing, but just knew they were good at this, loved this, wanted a piece of the pie. Like, it was still kind of natural instinct rather than being disciplined about it. And now these last few years, I can clearly tell the difference in my own skills because I've been more disciplined about it. And I've realized more and more that having a routine is not evil. It's not like the man, you know? It's not necessarily that image of that person going to the 9 to 5. It's like, no matter what you choose in life, no matter what path you choose, you do need discipline. You do need a routine. And so I know I'm a little all over the place right now, but I guess what I'm saying is, for so long, I relied on natural skill alone, and that coincided perfectly with, I don't want that desk job. I don't want that, like, stringent, I don't know, like, governor on my life. Like, I want to do what I want when I want and all that fucking silly shit, which is obviously, like, freedom is great. Freedom is the best. And that's what I want ultimately. But you wanting freedom and chasing freedom, I know, Zach, we've talked about this many times. Wanting freedom, chasing the freedom aspect of, entrepreneurship and just, like, financial freedom, and not having to, like, answer to anyone, really, when you really think about it, doesn't free you from the need of discipline and strategy and routine. And I think it's just, I feel more and more enlightened these days. I know that sounds silly. I'm not saying I'm enlightened, like I know all the answers, but, like, I feel more and more and more and more and more self-aware every day. And this is one of those things I'm realizing, this discipline aspect, this routine is not evil. It's actually really good and helps you, especially with your mental health. But it's funny because it's also all coinciding with, like, me growing up and being an adult, and getting older. And I don't know, it's like chicken or the egg. I don't know which came first. I don't know if it's just because this is the natural course of life and I'm growing up and not a kid anymore. And so I'm realizing that like the adult aspects of life are not all bad and evil. Or if it's because I've been there and done that and been chasing this so long that I'm starting to realize what works and what doesn't work. Either way, both of them are happening at the same time. I am getting older and I am realizing more and more what does and doesn't work. And what works is routine. And it's these things that, again, as when I was younger and doing this, I would maybe shy away from them or not want my life to look a certain way, even if it felt good. But it's like there are certain aspects of it that I look forward to now. Like, I used to, like, as much as I want to be healthy and all that shit, I used to hate going to the gym. Just because, obviously, and there are still parts of it that are annoying and I don't like, but now I find myself, like, when I get up in the morning, I'm actually excited. I'm like, okay, amazing, time to go to the gym. And I never had that before. Again, don't know if that's because I'm getting older or because it's becoming more and part of my routine and my habits. And also, once you start seeing results, I know, again, Zach, we talked about this. Once you start seeing results, it becomes more like your ultimate goals seem more and more attainable as you start to see results. And so whether that's like a fake motivator, it's not fake, but, like, I guess what I'm saying is whether you see results or not, if you know you're doing the right things, it shouldn't dissuade you from continuing to do them. But when you do start to see those results, it does become a different thing in your life. And I'm kind of at that point right now, and it feels really good. And it's, again, just one of those things that's like, having a routine is ultimately positive if it's a good routine, if it's serving your life. So I still don't want to be that guy driving to his 9-to-5 desk job, dead end, not something he really ultimately cares about, and then coming home and still not being happy. Like, obviously no one wants that, but there are certain aspects to that. Like, I don't know, I used to look at some people I grew up with and I know this is going to sound crazy, but it is how I felt, and I don't feel this way anymore, so that's why I'm explaining it. I used to almost pity certain people because I'm like, you guys are suckers. That's really how I felt. Like, look at you, you played the safe route. And part of me still has some of those sentiments in me somewhere. But also I look at where they are in their lives compared to me. I'm not comparison is the thief of joy. I don't mean comparing it in the sense of, why don't I have that? I mean, just being honest with myself and just looking at where they are versus where I am and the difference between what we're both doing. And it paid off for them. Taking that route paid off for them in the sense of, like, they're more established. They have a little bit more security. Whereas I don't have any security. But it's like, that's just what was right for them. So I used to be kind of a hater and be like, psh. And now I'm realizing like, nah, dude, it's just that was what's right for them. But I don't know. I guess the only thing is, are they happy? Because that's the only way it is right for them, is if they're happy. And some of my close friends that went that route are extremely happy, and they couldn't want anything more than what they have right now in their lives. And like, that's amazing. That's incredible. I always kind of knew that wasn't the route for me. I think again, my 2 years of, year and a half, can't really call it 2 years. I didn't make it through the second year. My year and a half of college is really what proved that to me. But even before then, I don't know. Okay, so back to the natural talent thing. It's not just music though, because even it makes sometimes, guys, listen. I do this podcast because I think I have a lot of good ideas in my head, but saying them, totally different thing. And so sometimes it's difficult for me to find the words, and I appreciate you listening as I try to figure out a way to say it and ultimately finally maybe come to an actual way to say it. Not just the music thing that I relied on my natural talent on. Also school. Like growing up, certain things in school came very easily to me, and I got good grades and I did well in school. But then at a certain age, the people who actually are very naturally intelligent and put the work in skyrocket past you. And that's what happened in high school to me, especially as I kept smoking weed and shit. Like, I just was like, fuck this doesn't matter what high school, this like all this, the typical like stoner thoughts that you have in high school of like, this shit is whack. I had all of them. But I still liked school. Like, I still liked learning. Same thing with the music thing. I was like, this is so easy to me. I don't really need to put more time into it when I'm home. When I'm home, I'm just going to smoke weed and play video games and not do my homework. And that didn't work out ultimately. But like the same kind of mentality went into both of those things. And it's funny now as an adult, because two things that I have not left me, again, things that came naturally to you, things that come naturally to you that kind of stick with you forever, whether you want them to or not, or whether you try for them to or not. It's just kind of part of the human experience, in my opinion. Music, obviously, my whole life is centered around it, but also learning. Like, as much as I didn't get good grades towards the end of high school and stopped caring or trying and dropped out of college, I still loved learning. Like, I still love education, and I wish that I valued that more than anything. Not because of like, I wish I took that route of getting a degree and getting a safe job and all that stuff. Sorry, I needed a breath. Not because of that. Like, I don't regret my path necessarily, but just for the aspect of like, I want to be a better, more well-rounded human being and be more intelligent. Like, I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson again. He's the author of that book that I just finished, that I still recommend. Cosmic Perspectives, dope book. I was listening to him talk to another astrophysicist, brilliant person, and they're dumbing it down so much so that someone like me can understand. But I still don't fucking understand. Let's be honest. Half of those conversations I listen to with like these really interesting scientist people who are good at delivering their message to people who don't necessarily understand the language, of their dude, see, I'm a dope. Listening to these scientists communicate with one another and try to explain it in layman's terms, even still, I don't understand half of what they're fucking saying. But the learner in me, the person who does love education and does love knowledge and like is interested in all different kinds of things and wants to learn about all different kinds of things, I still, this is going to sound silly, I still feel smarter listening to them. Like, they make me feel dumb because I'm like, I don't know what any of this shit is. Am I an idiot? But then also I feel smart. I feel like, oh, I'm so smart. I just listened to two scientists talk. I didn't even absorb half of what they said. Maybe in the conversation, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I kind of understand that. Then they'll say like 3 words that I don't know what they mean. And I immediately feel put back into my place. And I'm like, I'm a fucking dumbass. And then afterwards, I'm like, I'm pretty smart for listening to those 2 really smart guys talk, even though I got nothing from it. But it's still that quest for knowledge. Like, it's why I try more and more too dude, I can't do TikTok. I just can't do it. I don't even like how, I don't know if you guys have like fucked around with it. No hate to you if you're trying to like do your thing on there, because it's obviously very beneficial. And the only reason why I even still am ever on there is for that reason. So I get it. And I'm just not great at it yet. Something I have to improve at if I want to fucking do anything in this, career path, unfortunately. I don't even like how it looks. I know that might sound dumb, but like, maybe it's just because I'm more used to it, but like Instagram, at least, I like the way it's laid out. It's like ergonomic. It makes sense where everything is. With TikTok, I just don't fucking like it. I don't like how it looks. It's also like shitty and slow. Have you ever noticed that? Like, it doesn't, I can't blame my Wi-Fi or my cell service, because every other social media app works completely perfect. But with TikTok, like if I look at my own stuff on there, if I go to my profile and click on a video, it takes forever to load. It's horrible quality. Then if I look at it on someone else's phone, it's perfect. It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I can't do it. But the reason why I even brought it up is because while on social media there are, like, you see a bunch of like good stuff. There is a bunch of good stuff. There's a bunch of intelligent, cool, creative people making intelligent, cool, creative content that you can learn from and take and do with it what you want. But to me, it's an overwhelming amount of bullshit that's on there. I more and more am distancing myself from it as much as I possibly can. And if I could delete it altogether, I would, but I can't. It sucks. I just can't do it. Not can't like it's a drug and I just can't help myself. Like I can't, because it would be a career suicide. I have to be on there. Until I'm at a level where someone else can just fucking handle all of it for me, I can't do it. I have to be on there. So, but I guess what I'm saying is like being the eternal, like forever wanting to learn, which I cherish and like enjoy about myself. More and more I'm like, fuck that shit. Like, let me watch a documentary or listen to, like, podcasts are good because it's not these fucking 10-second quick hit drug bursts of serotonin that you get from watching this shit repeatedly over and over again, which also just drains your serotonin and drains all the good feeling molecules you have in your head. That sounded really dumb, by the way. I know how dumb it sounded. But it really does. It sucks the serotonin straight out of you, because you get this dump of serotonin every single time that you scroll and see another video. And then when you log off, all of it's been used. And now you're just, maybe that mixed with the actual content that you are seeing can just slip you right into anxiety world. And I don't need that in my life anyway. But also, I do feel like I talked about a long time ago. This is the 41st episode, by the way, which is kind of cool. It's a lot of episodes. A lot of zero return on investment to continue to be consistent with it. So I'm proud of myself. I know I already talked about that, but it's what goes out, or garbage in, garbage out. That was an episode title like way early on. And I still feel that way. And again, while there's a lot of good shit on there, more and more I'm just like, nah, fuck that shit. Like I need this is what I was saying. The difference between like watching a podcast episode with someone much more intelligent and interesting than me versus like the quick scroll shit, it's people can actually, I don't know, it's more human. It's more natural to have a conversation, a lengthy conversation. And like this, spur of the moment ideas come into your head and it goes all over the place, just like Instagram or TikTok and stuff like that. But there's this central theme and it has an arc to it and a build, and it breathes and it ramps up at certain part. It's just versus like 15 seconds of this, 15 seconds of this, 15 seconds of this, just the most interesting part of everything. It's just so unnatural. So on top of it just not being good for you, I find it more interesting to listen to people have real conversations, how we actually speak in real life. We don't speak in 15-second bursts in real life. So I've just been more and more like trying to stray away from it. Reading is a big one because, again, as silly as it sounds, kind of like watching watching two scientists speak who I barely understand what they're actually saying, but the subject matter is interesting enough to where when I can understand it, I get something from it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But it just ultimately, it just makes me feel smart. As dumb as that sounds, it makes me feel better about myself. Like, oh, I'm not just watching the worst thing, for, like Jersey Shore, which again, I'm all for guilty pleasure television. That's fine. It's okay. But like, it just makes me feel better about myself and smarter. And it's the same thing with reading for me. Like, it just makes me feel smarter. Like, I could be watching something really dumb on Netflix right now, or not even really dumb. And listen, I'm an artist. I love like good movies and good television and all good anything. Like, I'm down to take it in, but I feel like I just get something different out of reading that I don't get out of watching TV. And so that's been one. The podcast thing, again, rather than like listening to something stupid, I just feel like I get more out of listening to something intelligent. I don't know. It's something that I've been talking about with Jay a lot because I don't know, like, she feels it. She definitely is like into, like, she catches herself being scrolling, and like, holy shit, that was a lot. And then catches herself not feeling good afterwards. So I've seen it up close, you know what I mean? And like, I don't want any part of it. And we're trying to like make sure that that's not happening to her anymore, because it's just ridiculous. It's pretend land. It's not real, yet it still affects our mental health. So I don't know. I don't really know why I went off on that little tangent, but more and more I'm just like, fuck that shit. It's so whack. And again, specifically with TikTok, I don't even like how it looks. It looks dumb to me. It doesn't compute in my head. Like, I don't know. I guess I do know why. I should say this. Maybe 2 or 3 times, because I'm telling you, I literally only go on there when I upload one of the videos, from the podcast. Literally, that's it. Or if I make something for it, which has happened twice ever, pretty much. So only 2 or 3 times, and I remember them consciously, have I been sucked in. And I get it. I do get it, because you like 3 or 4 things, not literally physically tap to like them, but like you enjoy 3 or 4 things and actually watch them. And as you start scrolling, that algorithm builds to like facilitate those things you were interested in. And then all of a sudden I'm watching people get pulled over and interact with the police for like an hour, like genuinely like 45 minutes to an hour, because I was just sitting there. And I'm like, what the fuck? No. This is terrible for me. Not even necessarily because of the content, but because like, what the fuck was it worth an hour of my life to sit there and watch this shit? No, it wasn't. It's just bad. And it's, the whole like, what's that fucking phrase about like drugs too? Like, everything in moderation. That's not necessarily true for a lot of things. I think some things are 0 is the only correct amount to take in. Like, yeah, in moderation, like, this is just the world we live in. That's the one thing that holds me back, other than my career path. Like, I feel like, yeah, if I didn't do what I'm doing for a living, then I would completely eliminate it from my life. But there's a little part of me that's like, I also don't want to be left behind. It's kind of like when you listen to like parents talk about it, young parents specifically, where it's like, I don't want my kid to have any technology. I want them to play with, fucking Tinker toys like we did growing up. And, at a certain age, then I'll start introducing it into their life. And like, fundamentally, I agree. And I wish that could be a viable solution to parenthood. But also, you don't, like, this is just kind of the way the machine works. And sometimes you do have to give in a little, because it's not going to slow down. Unless there was some sort of like asteroid impact that eliminated all internet and electricity and all that shit, like, it's only going to be more and more prevalent in our lives. So to completely limit yourself from it, and to like not see, I feel like, I know it sounds silly, but like not even like understanding the current state of like memes and shit, I feel like you're like ripping yourself out of the cultural zeitgeist, and by that you're not up on what is really going on in society. Now, obviously, social media is fake. I've talked about this a billion times. Like, it's a filter on top of a filter on top of a filter on top of the filter that we automatically put things through, because we do or don't want people to see them in the first place. So it's as fake as it gets. But also, like, there's a utility to like seeing it, I think. It's just when it runs everything you see and runs your life and all that shit, that's when it gets really bad. So maybe in moderation, maybe just keeping up with it, seeing certain things like, it's still a, I don't know how reliable, but it still is a news source. Like you do see things that you wouldn't have seen. No one our age has cable anymore. No one's really turning on CNN and Fox. I mean, maybe sometimes. Again, that's another thing. It's like, that shit sucks. It's bad for you to be fed one opinion or the other. But it also is kind of important to see what people are being fed if you can watch it from that perspective. You know what I mean? So maybe here and there, bits and pieces and like slowly taking in some of that shit is not the worst. It's like a little, what's that? Again, I'm full of phrases that I don't know what the fuck they are. It's like, just a hint of that poison to like make you immune from it and to like really see what's going on rather than fully immersing yourself and actually poisoning yourself. Maybe that's good. But I know that taking in too much of it is definitely not good. So try your best to limit yourself on that stuff because it's shitty. It's crazy, man. Have you seen this Kia Boys stuff? I don't want to get like political or anything like that. Like, I only want to talk about it because it's crazy to me. They're like videos of kids stealing the Kias and like driving them as crazy as possible and then fucking crashing them. And then one of their friends' arm is broken in half and then they run out of the car away from the scene of the accident to like not get in trouble. That shit is crazy. It's things like that that I never would know. I would not have known this is a thing unless I was on social media. But it's one of those things that just scares you for like the future. I'm not an old man. I'm not, every generation has had wild kids in it that do stupid shit that gets them in trouble or hurt or kills them, and it's terrible. And you can only do so much to limit it, but seeing things like that, it's like, what are we doing? My sister's a school nurse. I've talked about it multiple times. Some of the things she tells me she hears in the hallway or just hear, like, she's like, cool. She's youngish. Sorry, Kate. So she's like a cool nurse, I know, how like sometimes like going to school, like the young teachers were kind of hip and cool. She's not like trying to fit in with the kids or anything like that, but it's just obvious that she's more down to earth than maybe some of the older staff. So sometimes students will just tell her shit and she's like, please don't tell me that. I don't need to know that, but I'm not that far removed. We're not that far removed from high school or middle school to like completely misremember how it was. So I feel like I have a good grasp on like what our upbringing or what my upbringing was like. And it's just like, dude, kids are getting, it's this, we're in this wacky timeline of shit where like kids are getting older quicker. Like they're trying to mature in certain ways quicker than they're supposed to. And then also no one is getting married or having kids now until they're in their mid 30s. Whereas back in the day, you were 18, 19 out of high school getting married and having kids. So it's this weird thing where like the ways that like we should be maturing as a society are getting neglected and pushed back. And then in the ways that like you need to be a certain age physically, scientifically, you should be a certain age when you're doing these things. We're jumping to that as early as possible. And by we, I mean the kids of today. And that it does worry me a little. Like I'm not a pessimistic person per se, but I am a realistic person. And sometimes that stuff is like, it's just scary. Maybe it is a sign of getting older. Like I just identify with kids less and less. Whereas like it feels like 2 seconds ago we were in high school. Every once in a while I'll get like a flashback to a feeling or a memory, but like a real like vivid one. You know what I mean? Where something you haven't thought about in a long time, but some smell in the air, some sound, something triggered your subconscious to snap you back into that moment. And almost it's like you're there for a second. Been having a lot of those recently. And when I think about them, and they're so vivid and so crystal clear memory in my mind that it feels like it was 2 seconds ago, but it really wasn't. It was a decade. And it's like, oh my God, dude, what is happening? How am I so old? I'm not old. I'm not like speaking negatively. I'm just being honest about where my mind goes sometimes in those moments. It seems like yesterday. And then I realized, like, dude, no, so much has happened since then. Literally a decade of life has happened since then. I was doing, this is weird. Not weird, but I was on Twitter and I was scrolling through another thing I barely use ever, Twitter. But I was looking, one of the pages I follow is like the high school sports from my alma mater, like their sports page for like all, it's like a hub for all the school sports teams. And it's like some of the coaches are still the same. Some of the teachers are still the same. Like I got like a little window into what Schrader is like now. And that's a funny thing. But also there's some things that are so different. Like something as little as the uniforms. Like I played lacrosse in high school. Look at the uniforms. We changed uniforms 3 fucking times while I was on playing in high school, and because they all sucked. And now their uniforms are fucking sick. And it's like little things like that. Like, damn, they got dope shit. And then I keep scrolling and like the logo of the school has changed. And now they have like, for several different sports, they have like an inclusive league for children with special needs and maybe physical ailments. And it was like beautiful to see. It was really cool. And I'm like, damn, as much as I feel like I was just a kid, enough time has passed that like things are fundamentally different in the way they're going about education and schooling. And like, I remember I had a teacher that was like, Twitter's going to be the future. This is how old I feel, because now it seems so fucking obvious. Everyone has social media the second they're old enough now. But he was like, Twitter's the future. I want all you guys to make a Twitter account and we'll kind of use it the way it was supposed to be used back then, right? That's still the Twitter account I have to this day. Actually, no, that's a lie. I lied. Lost the password for that one. But for the longest time, it was still the Twitter account I was using. But now I look at it and it's so, like, I don't know if you can really grasp how different it is in the way that I'm explaining it. But I had a teacher that said that, and now it's like every kid on there is on social media, and it's not just like, hey, we should try this out as a cool, interesting thing. I'm a cool young teacher. We should try this out and see what happens. It's like so in part of the world that it's like, of course they're all on Twitter, these young kids. And like, I don't know, just things have changed so drastically in this 10 years to the point where sometimes I look back and I'm like, did we know anything? We didn't even dress correctly in high school. Like all the kids in high school now are like swaggy and shit. Dude, I wore the same 4 things to high school every day. And it was like cargo shorts, a lacrosse t-shirt, and a Yankee hat every single day. Just a different version of that outfit. And now kids like care what they look. Again, they're getting older in certain ways that shouldn't matter or don't matter or that they shouldn't. And then in other ways, they're fucking dumbasses. Excuse me. Sorry, kids. I don't know, man. I did a really poor job. I don't know. I did a poor job of explaining that because I don't know how sometimes to get my thoughts out to be like as dramatic as they feel in my head. You know what I mean? Like all of it clicked looking at like just little pictures of like, oh my God, that's another weird thing. Sorry. That's like in a weird topsy-turvy way. If you look at a picture of high schoolers from like 1975, they all look like they're 35 years old. And that's slowly just changed over time because I look at pictures from when I was in high school, we look very young. And now I look at pictures of kids in high school, and it's not just because I'm older. It's a clear trend. I don't know what the fuck has happened. That like they literally look like children. And some of them are 18 years old, technically adults. It's crazy. Something's in the water, or something was in the water. Maybe it's just a matter of like science. Like being 18 was literally being older. If you look at like what the life expectancy of a human is, in the 70s, being this age was you already lived a higher percentage of your expected life than what a kid who's 18 now has. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's why. I don't know, man. Things are changing. I'm confused. It's confusing. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on in my head either, clearly. Mushmouth over here. I blame this podcast, this episode on Jay. She's like, no, you got to film before we take the hike. And I'm like, I don't really have anything to say, to be honest. I'd rather take the hike. Not in like take a hike way, like we're going for a hike. I'd rather go for a hike and then clear my head and then maybe come up with some things to say. And she's like, no, it makes more sense schedule-wise. She's right, but this is what you get. I haven't said a fucking word about anything mental health related yet. Talking about relying on natural talent and then high schoolers are weird. I don't know. You like my shirt? That was a moment. See, you need a moment sometimes. I need a moment. I needed a moment. Maybe you needed a moment. If you're still listening to this episode, that's a fucking shit show. Yeah, man, I'm excited to go on a hike. Sometimes it's just, you just gotta clear your head. You just gotta clear your mind. As much as I have been saying the last couple weeks that, like, I feel good in life. I feel I'm at a great place with damn near every aspect of my life. I'm just feeling more happy, more pleased with things, more content, I'm more accepting of things coming my way, things that I'm putting out into the world, more accepting of the process, more accepting of my place on the timeline of the book that I'm writing that I don't know when it's going to end, right? I'm just more present, and it's really feels great. And I think that's why it feels great, is because of the fact that I'm living in the present more than I ever used to. Even to the point where, got my nose itches a little. Even to the point where, like, I have this show coming up, and I don't know, I'm not really worried about it. Like, maybe I should have already started rehearsing, but we're over a month away, and I'm like, that's not tomorrow. Now, not in a procrastination sense, can't procrastinate. I do have to start rehearsing. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm worried about what I have to deal with right now, today, as a part of this whole process of me, right? And I think that's why it's been so much easier to just enjoy it as it comes, because I've just been like, okay, well, this moment is the moment I'm in right now, so let me deal with this. Yes, you have to be prepared for what's coming next. You can't set yourself up for failure by never thinking about it, but just that's what's been, I think, the main contributing factor to me of why I've felt so good mentally lately. And also an update on the depersonalization stuff. That's been waning a bit, kind of getting rid of the frequency of that, which is great. It's still been happening, but not nearly as frequent as when I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. It was really scary. It's a fucking crazy feeling to feel like a robot. It's not fun. It's not fun. But I've been feeling better and better about it. But again, because I've been able to snap myself back into the present if I get too outside of myself. If you view your body as a vessel and every square inch of you is a bit of energy, right? When you're in the present, you feel very centered, very centered. You feel like everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Every atom in your body is exactly where it's supposed to be. And when you start thinking about the future too much, not in a sense of planning and strategy, but when you start worrying about things that have not even happened yet or might never happen, it's like this physical sensation where everything starts to inflate and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're getting outside of yourself more and more and more. And that's when you need to kind of suck it all back in and take that deep breath. Allow yourself to snap back to the present moment. And that's something that always helps me, is that breathing. Breathe. It sounds silly, but even outside of the actual physiological response that you're giving your body, when you stop yourself and just breathe, and focus on your breath and have intention behind each breath, outside of the actual physical scientific shit that is going on in your brain in that moment, it just allows you to slow it all down, because you're not talking, you're not thinking, you're not worrying, you're just breathing. You're just doing the most basic human function. And then just in that moment, boom, right back to the present you are. It might take a couple breaths. Sometimes one is all you need. One big deep breath. But if you can do 5 or 10, all of a sudden, woo, not only do you get that rush of oxygen into you and that, you're expelling all carbon dioxide out from your lungs, and you're slowing your heart rate, and it's allowing it to be, it's allowing your brain to much easier think. That was not a real sentence of English. It's becoming, it's allowing your brain to think more easily and calmly. It just helps, man. Just keep breathing, dude. I mean, that's really what we're all trying to do, is to just breathe as long as possible. That's an interesting way to look at life. What's crazy is like you have a certain amount of breaths left. You just don't know the number. That's wild. You have a certain amount of footsteps left. You have a certain amount of mistakes, a certain amount of wins, a certain amount of losses left, and you don't know the number. You don't know the last time you're going to hug someone, the last time you're going to speak to them, the last time you're going to fight with them. You just don't know. So snapping yourself back to the moment and just enjoying each moment for what it is as much as humanly possible is like the only answer to happiness. You can't get outside of yourself too much. You can't get outside of the now too much. You just can't and expect to be happy. I look at like 99% of my anxiety and depression throughout my lifetime of experiencing this stuff has been either from things that have happened in the past or things that will or won't happen in the future. None of it has really come from the now. Maybe something is happening that triggers an anxiety attack, right? Maybe something happens that is triggering my depersonalization. That's different. But again, what is that? 1% of the times that I feel anxious or depressed, it's actually about what's going on right now. So it's all about snapping it back into the moment. If you were a cog on a machine, if you were a gear in the wheel of your life and your momentum and you're going forward, the only time the wheel is operating optimally is when you are right where you're supposed to be. But if you go into the past too much and you're unaligned, the fucking cogs get all screwed up. Got to put WD-40 in it, could start to rust. If you're in the future too much, other way, same thing. You start leaning right, your wheel starts going right instead of staying centered, heading down the hill. It's all about the present. The breathing thing really helps for me. Even if you listen to this, like you're not necessarily someone who gets anxious, if you just feel yourself getting outside of the now too much and you realize it, and maybe it's not serving what you're trying to accomplish today or what you're trying to accomplish, this week, just take that time to breathe a few times. It's not hard. There's a million different methods to it that, like, some people swear by. Some 6 seconds in, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds hold, 12 seconds out. That's a popular one. I've also, this new one that I've been trying recently is to inhale as deeply as you can, hold it for a couple seconds, and then inhale one more time as much as you can. It'll only be just a tiny bit, but by that, you're opening your lungs to its maximum extent. And then when you breathe out all the way, all the carbon dioxide goes out, and it's proven to reduce your stress and anxiety pretty much instantaneously. But regardless, having a good breathing practice in your life is essential to, like, making sure you can control the moment, not control, but making sure you can control your place in the moment and making sure that you can kind of snap it back to where it's supposed to be. So I really recommend either looking into it or just trying. It's just breathing, dude. You're doing it right now without realizing it. It's not that hard. But again, you don't know how many of those you got left. You don't know how many. It's crazy. You don't even, like, I know it sounds silly, but like, cause that's like a deep thing. It's very a little morose thinking about death, but I don't view it in that way. I kind of view it as just it is what it is, man. You're going to die one day. I'm sorry. That's kind of the beauty of it, though. Like, that's just, you don't know what comes next anyway. You might have your own beliefs, and that's fine. Respect pretty much every belief of what you think comes after death. I respect, because no one really knows. And the only way you can even have an opinion on it is to just believe and have faith in whatever thing you believe or have faith in. So I respect it. But you don't know. No one actually knows. So that means you have to use this. This is the only thing we do know is actually happening, is right now. So that breathing can really help that. But I think about silly shit, not just like, oh, how many times will you get to see your best friend before you die? I think about like literally, you're going to only chew a certain amount of times before you die. If you're not eating something right now, think about that. If you like go to eat lunch in a little bit or dinner or something, that is the start of the rest of the times that you'll ever chew again. You're only going to take a shit at a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? We only have a limited amount of shits to take. So make the most of it. Make the most of each one. Yeah, I'm going to try to make the most of today. It was kind of shitty in the morning. So she was right. Listen, she was right. Okay? She was right. I mean, it's still her fault that the first 40 minutes of this podcast stunk. But she was right. It's nicer out now than it was in the morning. So I'm going to go. Yesterday was beautiful. Dude, I love spring. I love summer. It's so nice. It really does change it. I never have been so. Growing up in upstate New York, especially Rochester, it's like, it's just fucking cloudy all the time. And some people claim to have seasonal depression. And it's not that I didn't believe it was real, but I just never really experienced it. I was just depressed anyway. I just never really attributed it to it being cloudy and cold all the time. And here, where it's sunny almost every day, but there's a difference between when it's like kind of sunny and shitty, like, you know what I mean? Like half shitty, half sunny, and like also kind of chilly, versus like a fucking gift from God, beautiful day. And the last 2 days have been that. And then today was a little shitty in the morning. It looks like it's starting to clear up a bit. God, it's so nice. It just you feel life entering your skin. I'm excited to play the show, by the way. It's going to be sick. It's going to be cool because it's different, like I said, but also because, my mom, I just sounded like I was from Rochester. I'm not even from Rochester. I hated that just now. No offense. My mom called me out pretty hard. Again, sounded like Rochester. Hard. She called me out pretty hard. Not in a mean way, because she doesn't ever say anything mean to me. Actually, almost to a detriment. But she was like, I just feel like you have so much to offer. I used to go to your shows and you had good stage presence, and, and I listened to your little podcast things and you have so much to say. And I just felt like you were so nervous up there. And I was like, fuck. If my mom's saying that, she's not wrong. I mean, I knew I was nervous, but like, I felt like I played it off and it was kind of cute. That's always been, even my game with girls has always been like being bashful a little, not to the point of like them not liking it because like you're not confident in yourself. You gotta have confidence, fellas. You have to act confident, but not in a conceited bullshit way. No one likes that shit. That's just whack. And also just be yourself, more importantly. But I was being myself in those moments. I was like, I'm nervous, haha, hee hee. But for my mom to say something, I already knew going into this next show that like, all right, tone that down a little. And also you won't be as nervous, and you'll be better all around. Everything will be better. But hearing her say that, I'm like, fuck, shit, you're right. I was too nervous. So I'm going to let my personality shine through a little more. I mean, that was my personality, but like, as I've said before on this podcast, like, addressing your nerves is good, but maybe in that environment, doing it too much, it becomes a little bit like they start to pity you, which you don't want. You gotta have some crowd control. I'm just fucking hyped because the stuff I've been working on, I think that most of what I play is probably not even gonna be released by the time the show happens. Maybe that's a bad thing in terms of like, I'm starting to get to the point where I already don't like any of the music that I've released, which is okay. It's kind of part of it. I would go as far as saying a lot of your favorite songs from your favorite artists, they have hated that song for a long time because it's one of the first things you hear from them, meaning it's old to them. So, I don't know exactly what the set list is going to be, But I know that I have 2 songs that are not released yet that like I really want to play there because I love them very much. At least right now in this moment, I love them. Who knows? So I don't know. I'm excited. It's gonna be a totally different thing than last time, and I'm excited. But my mom called me out, so now I gotta be more cooler. Thank you guys for listening. It was a slog. We got there somehow. I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck can I even clip out of this to put on social media. The part where I talked about how much I hate social media, maybe the part about that you only can take a certain amount of shits in your life. That's probably what people will get the most out of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna go take a hike. Go on a hike. I keep saying take a hike like, it's 1965 and someone doesn't want to swear but wants to tell you to go fuck yourself. Take a hike. Gonna go for a hike. Enjoy this beautiful day. I encourage you to do the same. I know by the time you're listening to this, it's Monday, and you're probably back in that routine that you either love or hate. If you love it, keep it going. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you hate it, fix it, dude. Just get the fuck out of there, because you only have so many breaths left. So how many more of them you want to take in a place you hate? You see what I'm saying? I gotta remember I got this. You gotta remember you got this. We gotta remember. Or no. Oh my God, this episode. What the fuck? I gotta remember I got this. You gotta remember you got this. And if not, we got this. We got each other's back. We could do this together. Holy smokes. Thank you guys for listening. God willing, I'll see you next week with an even better episode. Take care of yourself this week. Do something nice for yourself. Be conscious of the moment. Snap yourself back into the moment when you need to. And remember, you only got so many breaths left, so make the most of them. Thank you guys so much.